Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Thunder breaks, the ground is shaking from the weight. Voices crying in the night, but freedom burns a steady light. We hold the line, we won't let go. Through every trial, the truth will show. This is your daily dose. Open your eyes, see through the smoke, see through the lies. Rise from the silence, hear freedom's call. One voice, one people, united we stand tall.
Hearts awaken, chains undone. A new day breaks, the dawn has come. Through every battle, through the flame, our faith in God remains the same. The storm may rage, the night may fall, but hope will answer stronger than all.
This is your daily dose. Courage and fire, lifting the weak, lifting us higher. Not by the sword, but the truth we recall. Where we go on, we go on. We've seen the darkness try to reign. We felt the sorrow, we've known the pain, but every trial has forged the steel. In God we trust, His plan is real.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Repill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. Hope everybody is doing well this Thursday evening. Give me a 5-5 if like you guys can see me good and you guys can hear me good. So the last week or so, I've been having the show just a little bit later, and it's because I'm renovating this whole area, this whole studio. I built a desk and I got monitors going up and new mics and cameras and all this stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I've been kind of late, because I'm working my ass off prior to this, and I don't hire people to do all this. I do it all myself. But yeah, I built myself a desk today, and I got new monitors, I got new equipment coming in, new mics, I got a new camera today. So that's why I'm like, how are we looking? Is it like crystal clarity here? And then the music, people are like, man, why do you got to play such long music as your intro? So one of the top shows on YouTube is Redacted. That's with Clayton and Natalie. I've been on that show multiple different times. Their intro rolls for 15 minutes before the show actually starts. You know why? Because it gives the audience time to get into the show. It gives notifications time for people to see them, click it, and get into the show, to not miss a beat of the information. That's why we do the long music. So I've been in this industry for a very long time, been doing this type of stuff for a very long time. And if you guys hate the music at the beginning of the show, tell me. Let's do a poll. Tell me, Josh, we hate it. It's horrible. I don't like it. Or say, Josh, you know what? I like it. It's fine. And we will do a gauge of that. But please don't send me the emails like telling me that you don't like the music. This is my thing. This is how we do it. I like doing this. I like playing the music. It pumps me up. It pumps the audience up, but it gives people time to join in. So I appreciate all the feedback, by the way, guys. You guys are amazing. But like, the music is part of the show. It used to never be that way. It used to just be a short little intro. Then boom, there I was. Now, we're doing the music. We're doing the music because, well, like I said, it gives people time and it pumps you up. But yeah, so we got a lot of changes happening here in this small little studio. So by the way, if people don't know, I broadcast from a studio I built in a corner of my garage, a 12 by 12 foot corner of my garage. I framed it out, built it all out, and built a studio in there. And I built all this stuff. And so I got this monitor rack that sits in front of me where I can see kind of all of my tabs and pages and the important information that I'm monitoring. And I have a whole new setup rig coming in. I actually used to have a very sophisticated rig that I used to use. The Rodecaster is what I used to use. Mine blew up. Shit, the bed is sitting over there. And that was a few years ago. And I just never replaced it. I didn't think I needed it. I use these kind of low-level microphones right here. But lately, people are like, dude, sounding scratchy out there. And then I have problems with audio with Alpha when we do shows together, because he's using a high-performance soundboard and I'm using nothing. So I decided to upgrade everything. So that's what I'm in the process of. So I apologize for the late shows as of recently. I just been very busy, and summer's coming to an end, and I got all that stuff going on, yard work, and you guys know me, kind of doing the homestead all by myself, and it's just me here to take care of all of this stuff. But you know what? I enjoy it. I definitely do. That's the life, right? Life is about the love of the things that you do and the mysteries that they all lead you to. All right. What's going on in the world today? Man. So there's some news. We're going to go over some of the news here. Before we get into the news, though, just a few little updates. And I know how people feel about these updates, but we're going to get the updates out there. Number one, September 17th to September 19th, I will be in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the Great American Restoration Tour. And I'm hoping that you guys can join us. I mean, look, I don't do very many events, but this is one in September. I do have one coming up in October as well. I should have the details for that event coming up probably by the end of this week. I have my meeting with them, but that is going to be in Fort Worth, Texas in October. But I will have that information out for everybody soon. But this is the one that we have right now, the Great American Restoration Tour 13, September 17th and September 19th. I hope that anybody out there in Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, get your butts out there. Let's have a great time. So hopefully I get to meet and see you guys there. We always compete amongst us Badlands hosts. Who is going to have the most fans show up? Or fans, or I don't like to call it fans, but audience members show up. And it's been DEF CON, by the way, the last few cards. I want to keep that rolling. So, guys, go out there, get your tickets. Go to redpills.tv. Easiest place to get that. Redpills.tv is my website. This is actually, you just scroll down on the website, and right there, there's the events. And you can find that, and you can go over to the Badlands page right there, redpills.tv for those tickets. So I hope to see you guys there. And if not, make sure you're picking up those virtual tickets. What else we got? I said we had some things going on, right? Let's figure out what we have going on. Some news, but I wanted to make those two notices. Tomorrow night, our live Q&A. So tomorrow night, there's a live Q&A with myself. This is where we shoot the shit. We talk about all different topics. It's really you guys talking, and if you want to ask me questions, I'm there hanging out, but mostly it's some really engaged conversations about a lot of different topics, and I hope that people can jump into that. If you're interested in getting involved in that, you just need to become a premium subscriber for like $4.99 or $5.99 a month on whatever channel that you're on. So if you're on Rumble, X, Substack, YouTube, Facebook, which is newly added, or socialredpill.com or locals, you can get into that. I'm working with Rumble to try to figure out how to do it on Rumble. Soon it will be happening. But that is tomorrow night, Friday night, about 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. There is a conversation on the Fringe tomorrow night, so that will be going on during the show. And yes, there is a Daily Dose tomorrow as well. So we will have the Daily Dose show as well. Last week I had to cancel. I had a few different things, tech issues. Like I said, got new tech set up. But other than that, I think that's the announcements that we had. We're going to go ahead and get into it. We'll do the Rumble ads on the transitions of the content, kind of what I do. I think that works better anyway. But let's go in here and look at this. DOJ agrees that carrying a gun in a postal service building is lawful exercise of your Second Amendment rights. The Gun Owners of America reported today that the Justice Department concedes that Americans can carry in the United States Postal Service buildings under the lawful purposes exception in the federal carry ban of 18 U.S.C. 930. DOJ's reasoning is very broad and could result in public carry and many other federal facilities. Now, this is interesting because in Virginia, this isn't a problem. In Virginia, you can carry, if you have a concealed carry permit or even just open carry, because there's no law against open carry in Virginia, you can walk into any state building with your firearm. I believe you still can. You used to be able to do it to the DMV. Those are the only state buildings I went to. But not courthouses. Courthouses, I believe it's still off limits. But this is going to be really interesting to see how this exception works at the federal level with other federal buildings, because it is a publicly owned federal building, which therefore stipulates that it is under the exception of 18 U.S.C. 930. So this is going to be really interesting to see what happens next. That was kind of like the only normie generic news that I had for tonight. Everything else is going to be talking about unrestricted warfare and the multi-domain battlefield. Now, I have a unique perspective, I think, on a lot of these topics. I've worked in the private professional world for a long time in cybersecurity, more so often now recently artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies. I've worked in kind of component intelligence analysis, if that makes sense to people out there. I can explain it a lot more. I do a lot more explaining in Q&As than I do here on the show, just because it's public facing information. But I've worked in a lot of these arenas before. And so when I talk about certain topics, I look at it in a different perspective than most people. I tend to look at the 40,000 foot view. I operate from the framework of what's known as the systems framework, or the systems mindset, that everything is simply a large system that feeds into other ancillary systems, which we can call subsystems. And when you look at the world and how it unfolds, you have to look at it as one huge macro system. And that among that macro system is microsystems that all have direct, indirect, ancillary influences and actions directed within that primary system. So I always look at things from the primary system perspective, and I break it down from that component. And at the end of the day, you start to realize that when you're looking at crime, corruption, treason, sedition, when you're looking at the obtainment of money, of power, of control, of these parts that we look at with the global elite and the global elite infrastructure that has been developed over the last 100 years, that there's only a few methodologies of reasoning of why they do something. There's only a few reasons of why they're going to do something. And one of the things that you learn is they never do anything that brings no benefit to them. Everything has some type of benefit, whether it's known or unknown to the people that are looking and analyzing it. So this was posted earlier today, Sam Mirjavoski, and this is pretty interesting. This is from a Real America's Voice, and I want you to listen to what he's talking about, because what you're going to start to hear is a lot of things that I've been talking about over the course of the last 2 weeks on this show pertaining to the levels of declassification of information that's coming out right now. So you're getting like baseline declassification. You're just getting the broad data. You're not getting the whys, the hows, the capabilities and the methods used, the other ancillary connected factions that were involved in this. You're just getting, hey, this is declassified intelligence and or information, and here you go. That's it. It's very similar to the DOW's documentation pertaining to UAPs and UFOs. You're just getting the raw data. You're not getting an explanation. And so you have to look at these finer details of what other people are investigating and seeing when we start to take all this in. Listen to this.
From the Transparency Task Force that John Solomon, our friend, is heading up. This document goes back to 2020. So just right at sort of the high level analysis I always look at as an attorney, is there a statute of limitations problem, and it's 5 years. I mean, I see this as being effectively closed. But before we really shut that door, remember the conduct. I strongly believe that as Solomon continues to release documents, we're going to find that conduct continued into 2021, 22, 23, and you'll see it going right up to the 2024 election. And so I think that particular issue is going to be overcome. And I think that this document now, this slideshow, where it basically was suggesting a means by which to label these individuals as sort of a suppressive persons and agents of Russia and the like, that it didn't just start there and end there. I think it continued. So it'll be interesting to see what evidence comes forward, in the weeks and months ahead.
Now, he said what evidence comes forward in the weeks and months ahead, because like I've been telling you, this is drip, drip, flood. This is just small portions of information, raw data that are coming out within all of this. Now, real AF Patriot, real as fuck Patriot here posted this, and he said the largest RICO case ever. He's right, and that's what Sam was actually indicating, is that since this continued on and perpetuated, this now becomes a RICO investigation. The 5-year statute of limitations kept resetting as their corruption continued. John Solomon will show that their corrupt conduct continued all the way up to the 2024 election. Absolutely. So this is another part that I'm going to say about this, because this is the real, remember, we have to look at the whys. We're seeing how or what. We're not looking at the whys, right? This was a multifaceted money laundering operation involving the White House, the executive office, NGOs, and other institutions. I'm going to leave that right there, because things that you're going to hear over the course of the next few weeks and few months, as people begin to dig into this, as people begin to unlock more within these documentations, as more documentation begins to come out, you're going to see that this was a massive scam against the U.S. taxpayer. And we actually have some of this information. I mean, listen to Tim Burchett here. Tim Burchett, not Burchett. Tim Burchett. Listen to Tim Burchett here. I want you to listen to what he says.
out. I think we're too complacent sometimes. I think we need to start tooting our own horn just a little bit, because the president has given us some great things. And J.D. Vance, of course, with his taking over of the DOGE efforts. I chair the DOGE committee, as you know, and we can't seem to get out of our own way and do things like codifying the president's executive orders. My gosh, those are some really popular things. And yet we've failed to do that. I put several into bill form to get them passed. I found $1 trillion in duplication and yet we can't seem to pass these bills.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to do what we said we're going to do. President Trump won overwhelmingly because of his message. Congress did not win overwhelmingly because our message was diluted. And I think.
Okay. Did you hear what Tim Burchett said? Just briefly. $1 trillion of duplication. $1 trillion in duplicate spending that the DOGE committee has found. This is criminal money laundering operation. Where is the accountability? I mean, listen, you know, with a $7 trillion annual budget, maybe you can see 200, 300 billion of duplicate spending, but $1 trillion? I want you to think about this right now. Right now, there's subscriptions that you have out there in your household. And you bring someone new into your household and they got the same subscriptions. So every month you're paying duplicate subscription fees. How long do you guys pay that before you go, hey, holy shit, we got 2 Netflix accounts. Let's cancel one of these. That's not what the federal government does. The federal government allows that to build up to $1 trillion and just lets it go. Why? Because it has nothing to do with the idea that it's duplicate spending. It's all about paying off the NGOs, the NPOs, the institutions, the military-industrial complex, the defense contractors, the intelligence contractors. It's about keeping the people that are lobbying them in business in Washington, D.C. It's about keeping that infrastructure of business that surrounds Washington, D.C. that takes in the $7 trillion of revenue each year of taxpayer dollars, keeping that afloat so the campaign funds keep rolling in, so that when they're no longer in Congress or Senate or no longer in positions in the military or within the bureaucracy, that they can get sweet jobs as on the board of directors or EVPs of these various different companies that they're helping to support. It's a money laundering operation. It's a scam. Not necessarily a scam. I mean, they do work. They do what they do, certain of them. I mean, besides maybe Stacey Abrams. I mean, for people that don't know, people are like, if we got any lefty trolls in the chat, raise your hand because you're going to love this one. Stacey Abrams in September of 2024, before the elections, started and created an NGO, a non-government organization. She filed immediately after opening it for a $3.1 billion grant from the federal government. Right after the Biden administration or the Kamala campaign lost the election, the Biden administration approved the $3.1 billion grant to Stacey Abrams. Now, why is that shocking? Because any NGO that goes out there and gets any type of grant has to have a historical record of financial records of what they do and how they do it, implementation. That was not present. Ask yourself why that happened. And the reason why it happened is because you're paying off people. You're paying off NGOs, NPOs, so that money can circle back around through private industry back into the coffers of the left, of the Democrats, to continue to keep them into various different positions of power. $1 trillion of duplicate payments. All right. John Solomon here. Very visual show tonight.
The Biden campaign develops the theme that we're going to call the Hunter Biden stuff Russian disinformation and conspiracy theory. Then you're going to have 51 intelligence analysts go out and write a bogus letter saying, don't believe the Hunter Biden laptop, even though the FBI has it and has corroborated it. And then you have the intelligence community going out and discrediting long-term confidential human sources who have been providing information, some as far back as 2008. So these are long-term, reliable, confidential human sources, and they're putting their body in front of any criminal investigation. And then remember what the IRS whistleblowers told us a couple of years ago? They kept trying to bring a criminal case against Hunter Biden, and the deep state wouldn't let them do that. This was a 360-degree protection racket for the Biden family, and law enforcement and intelligence, which is supposed to be politically neutral and about the facts, ignored the facts and played the politics.
Now, he's talking about the counterintelligence operation known as Jeez, I got a white screen from Just the News right in front of me. He's talking about the counterintelligence operation known as Round River. Now, let me ask you this. What's a Round River called? It's a moat. It protects the castle. Think about it. They knew exactly what they were doing. Now, why would they do what they did? So this was not only to prevent investigations, as John Solomon said, and I said you're going to learn about this as more information comes out, as more declassification begins to occur. You're going to see how this begins to integrate. Not only to prevent investigations, but cover up the one small fact that no one is talking about. Only me. You heard it here first. These people who were protected were not operating alone. They were being influenced and heavily funded privately by China, other institutions, and countries. One of the institutions, or one of the organizations under protection of Round River, the counterintelligence operation, was Rosemont Seneca Bodai. Now, that's Hunter Biden and Devin Archer's company, which just happened to have massive contracts with various different Chinese energy companies, which are owned and operated by the Chinese Communist Party. So take that over here. That's just one. That's just one line item of the multitude that were on there. We're not looking at the private integration of how China influenced any of those people. Only one in the context of money, of financing. And we know that because that was discussed over the last 4 years. That was discussed prior to the 2020 election. Now, take that into consideration and go back to President Donald Trump's address to the nation a few weeks ago when he said that, hey, what we have evidence of, what we are declassifying is legitimate evidence that China interfered and influenced the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Okay? Now, we're not showing any evidence or declassification of anything that any votes were flipped or any votes were turned. But when you have interference means that you're running various different counterintelligence operations, you're running influence operations, you're hacking using cybersecurity. This is unrestricted warfare, right? Economics, all of these aspects to interfere or influence the election. And not only that, China paid a multitude of various different mainstream media journalists to run pro-China anti-Trump stories during that time frame and frame Trump as the bad guy. Not only that, as we know, a massive amount of social media influencers, left and on the right, were also involved within that Chinese influence operation, monetization, and targeting. Now, take that into consideration, okay? Because I said during that time that more information is going to come out that's going to link this to the deep state, that's going to link this to the Biden White House, that's going to link this to the deep state actors that we know of. And Round River is that first part that you begin to see that there's more to this story than meets the eye. And why am I saying this? Is because right now you're just getting the broad, raw data thrown out there. Declassified document. It doesn't look interrelated or intercorrelated. But what it is, it's the drip. And when you start to connect these things together, you start to see a huge narrative being constructed. And that is the intentionality behind why China helped to influence and interfere with the 2020 election, was to retain and maintain power over the executive branch of the United States of America, as well as the Congress and the Senate, and to keep the deep state bureaucracy in place. Now, what methodologies did they utilize to do this? Well, there's a lot. There's NGOs, NPOs, that type of infrastructure to help with funding requirements, protests, Summer of Love 2.0, all of this stuff that happened, but also what declassed at the same time that President Trump did this national address. The Fauci documentation led in June 30th with DNI Tulsi Gabbard coming out with the 72 biolabs in Ukraine, but also the lab origins that COVID was gain-of-function research, and it was made in a laboratory in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and then moved in 2014 when Barack Obama put a moratorium on gain-of-function research, moved to Wuhan Institute of Virology by Ralph Barrick and EcoHealth Alliance and Peter Daszak and them, and funded with a $3.1 million grant from NIAID by Anthony Fauci. It continued at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But what you're not hearing about is that the Wuhan Institute of Virology, we tend to think that like this is a branch off of the Wuhan Institute of Technology, and it's just a public school. There's no such thing as a public school in the Chinese Communist Party, in the Communist China. This is a level 4 biocontainment lab owned and operated by the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, by the Chinese Communist military. U.S. gain-of-function research was being conducted and moved to China under Chinese military control. That information came out at the same time that Donald Trump said that. What does that begin to do? He said, hey, China tried to influence and interfere with our election to the point where legally we could prosecute them. They stole a whole bunch of cyber voter data. At the same time, they're coming out and telling you that, lab origins. Yep, absolutely did happen with COVID. These are the broad details behind that. Well, what does that begin to do? That begins to show a connection that the intentionality of COVID, which right now is being seen as an accidental release, is no longer accidental, now becomes intentional. When you start to show that in order for the 2020 election to be successfully stolen and by the way, people are like, well, how is it stolen, Josh? It was stolen because various different states had to change their laws and protocols to accept mail-in ballots from everybody, not just for absentee ballots. That was one of the main constructs of how that was done. That was done primarily through the Secretary of States, who are in control of state-bound elections, and then the authority of that was done through the attorney generals. Why does that matter? I'll tell you in a second. But they changed the election laws illegally, by the way, because of COVID. Without COVID, that would have never have happened. Without COVID, you couldn't have had 64 ballots coming from one single address in a state like Arizona. You wouldn't have had Mark Zuckerberg with Zuckerbucks out there funding $600 million to put ballot drop boxes off in every damn corner of the street that were just being overflowed and filled with ballots that potentially are fake because there's no way to validate the authenticity. So now, when you go back to what Donald Trump was saying, we start to see the evidence, protected players, everything like that. We see the money trail of those protected players. Yeah, some of them were taking money from China. Well, why does that matter? Because why create that counterintelligence operation? Well, when you start to put it together with a bigger picture here, that COVID was released intentionally to produce the situation where the Secretary of States of each state could change the mail-in ballot laws to allow the ballot flow, ballot harvesting, ballot scheme, if you want to look at it like that, to actually occur to steal the 2020 election to get them then back into power. But you ask yourself, well, Josh, but the Secretary of State's, that's very hard to get control of. How do you know? Well, because in 2018, two primary NGOs operating in the United States of America, the Open Society Foundation and another NGO, private organizations operated by Neville Roy Singham, who, by the way, was just subpoenaed by a grand jury in New York, who lives in Beijing, highly influenced by the CCP. They funded massive amounts of campaigns personally and through their foundations, as well as ancillary. Ancillary, I mean, is that the Open Society Foundations would fund BLM, they would fund Antifa, they would fund these various different core organizations. Those core organizations would then go out and help people register the vote. They would go out there and they would donate to political campaigns. This is how you fund it. This is how you become active within the campaign landscape to basically get your candidate into places and positions of power. And what was the primary campaigns that they focused on in the 2018 midterms: attorney generals and secretary of states. In 2021, many different Supreme Courts, including Pennsylvania, ruled that the changes made by the Secretary of State and the Attorney Generals were unconstitutional, that they required the state assemblies, the state Congress, to actually change those laws, that the Secretary of State and the Attorney General don't have that authority. So what you're beginning to see is that construction of that RICO case, that grand conspiracy, begin to form up with this information. And this is why I'm telling you, pay attention to the classified information that comes out. It might seem arbitrary. It might seem like it's not interconnected, but it is. And it's all tying it together, because this is what I've been saying. It goes back to the Q post that we looked at last night. The Trump administration, their methodology is you can't tell the people. You must show them. And this is the showing you. This is the small little drips that lead to the crescendo of a flood. All right, more we got on this. And I love this conversation because this tails on everything that we were talking about last night. And in the context of unrestricted warfare, China basically wrote the doctrine. Trump is a master at it, but China is as well. And understand that China has agents all around the world, including former presidents. Listen to this.
We spend a lot of time with young people now with YAF, and I wonder what it is that has made the last couple generations of young people more receptive to a ideology, communism, socialism, that's resulted in 100 million deaths and worldwide disaster everywhere it's been. Why are they willing to consider it now inside this great country?
I think three quick things. I think it's colleges, it's schools, and it's ultimately cost of living. In colleges, we see years of liberal indoctrination where it's only one side of the story. They don't know that, not just in the past, as you talked about, John, but even today in Venezuela, a country that actually elected a democratic socialist, it ruined their economy. So much so you can see images of working people with homes picking through the garbage, looking for food there, just like you do homeless people in California. So one, they don't know. Two, in our high schools and even middle schools, they're not only not teaching history, they're actually telling people to hate America. It's why pride in America is at its all-time low. And if you look at just attainment rates in 8th grade, they don't even have 13%, more than 13% of the young kids who actually know anything about American history. And three, the cost of living. More than burritos, home prices are legitimately a concern for young people, even those that haven't gone woke. And so we've got, as conservatives, we got to do a better job of telling them democratic socialism is not the answer. A more clear marketplace is the answer to drive down this cost.
Okay. This goes back to one of the things that I've talked about at length. In colleges, we see years of liberal indoctrination where there's only one side of the story. He's absolutely correct. This is why last night I was talking about the universities and our educations, our grade schools. These are the primary places that we have to focus on for the next generation and remove the indoctrination camps that are already there. All of these, blue and pink haired liberal teachers that are pretending to be women, they got to go. You have to get them out. That is a direct threat to our republic. That's a direct threat to our children, and that should not be allotted in any school. And then the fundamental indoctrination training into socialism, in the context of the comparison of socialism versus capitalism, is a problem. And what they should be teaching in school is the correct assessment of what has happened over the last 100 years of what capitalism actually is. We don't have capitalism anymore in the United States of America. Hello? We don't have capitalism. We have quasi-capitalism. And I say quasi because there is a market derivative of how the market dynamic operates. But what you really have is you have crony capitalism. Crony capitalism is where Wall Street, the London bankers, Washington, D.C., and a group of large industry and financial institutions control the flow of the economic system. And this is one of the things that I believe that Donald Trump is trying to undermine and dismantle and getting back to a free market dynamic. So I think if any socialists or Marxists out there heard me explain that, they'd be like, you're absolutely right. And I'd be like, great, because what you have seen is not capitalism. Capitalism works. It works incredibly well. but you have to give it a chance to work, and you have to produce safeguards so that it can work. And it works 1,000 times better than socialism ever will work. Now, in this, the one thing that they did not mention in that short little part there is, why are our educational centers so rampantly indoctrinated by socialism? How about Chinese influence operations? In 2009, President Barack Hussein Obama, in coordination with the State Department of the United States, working with Chinese counterparts, created the 100,000 strong initiative, and later known as the 1 million strong initiative. This allowed Chinese money to flow into and fund U.S. universities and U.S. professors, vice versa. So Yale, Harvard, MIT, all of these major universities were taking in millions of dollars of Chinese money, private and CCP derived. And it was allowed to happen under Obama. No wonder why our universities are shitholes. Now, I hinted towards this last night. I was I kind of was in the DHP chat last night, the Devolution Power, or DPH chat last night, Devolution Power Hour, and I said this, and I saw John read it, and he didn't comment on it, but I was hoping he would. We're getting news that Judge Jeanine Pirro has convened a special grand jury in Washington, D.C. Special grand juries are typically convened to investigate wider conspiracies and organized crime, including corruption among government officials. Unlike a typical grand jury, a special grand jury could release a damaging report after the investigation, even if prosecutors fail to develop evidence to bring the case to trial. Now, why is this important? It's important because we just had 3 rounds of declassified information come out, right? We had March Toll, Oxford, and then we had Round River. Plus, on top of that, we had the Chinese election interference influence operations that were also declassified. That's 6 levels of declassification that have happened that all surround itself within the jurisdictional authority of Washington, D.C. That all involve the 7th floor of the FBI, everybody from Andy McCabe to Chris Wray. It involves CISA. It involves Chris Krebs over at CISA, who used to be there in 2020. It involves people within the White House, the executive branch under the Biden administration. That's why you convene a special grand jury. When we talk about RICO, this is where that gets confirmed and kind of put together. At least that's what I believe this is about. We shall see. All right. This was interesting. We can talk about that some other time. Actually, okay. We're going to transition off of that topic a little bit, and I want to get into some... Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. Okay, no, that's okay. We're going to transition to some other content here. Before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. This is for Rumble Wallet, guys. We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of banks holding your money, delaying transfers, and limiting access, you are in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today. Everyone's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. That's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all the complexity and makes it simple. Choose what you want: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you are set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you are in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. In a little bit, I'll talk a little bit about the economic state of the United States and where it's headed. And I want people to understand that there is an economic boom like you've never imagined on its way to the United States of America. $20 trillion of investment capital coming in over the course of the next 10 years to 20 years. What does that do to the gross domestic product of a country? What does that do to the job market, to the average salary? They skyrocket. What does that do to the value of stocks and cryptos that become associated with it? They skyrocket. So keep that in mind. Oh, 1 second. I'm getting texted to do things here. Okay. I love this. So President Trump immediately escalated to the Supreme Court after leftist judge Indira Talwani blocked his election integrity executive order for mail-in voting and citizenship. 47's legal team is asking SCOTUS to do the right thing and reinstate the executive order to block the fraud, strike down the activist coup so our elections can stay secure. Sauer said, it is critical that the court act promptly on the pending stay. Otherwise, the district court's erroneous orders will effectively run out of the clock of the government's ability to implement Section 3 of the executive order for the federal elections in November, therefore causing irreparable harm to the federal government, the public, and the election integrity. Absolutely. So why is this important? Joe Lang over on X said this. The three-pronged strategy that's been underway since Trump took office again. Secure and verify citizenship for all mail-in ballots through the post office by using a federal list of citizens that has already been compiled with the help of Doge, and force all states to cleanse their voter registration rolls using the same federal list for verification. I agree with what he's saying, but it's a little bit more... it's not Doge that's necessarily involved in this. It's actually the post office. See, the post office has the correct mailing address for every single American citizen that is registered in their database, and they have the citizenship status directly associated in their databases, as well as their voter registration, which they help with the states in the context of getting things registered. And so what this does is that if the states turn over their voter rolls to the United States Postal Service, the United States Postal Service therefore can validate the people on that list versus people who are deceased, people who are not American citizens, people that are not in existence, and then clean them up and only start mailing ballots to legitimate American people that are registered on those voter rolls. But see, this is the scariest part for the left. They know that when this happens, they will ultimately lose every single election. That's the truth. All right. America goes on the defensive. So President Trump, the other day, he put out a presidential memorandum. I'm going to bring this up, and I know it makes my face white because the page is white, but expanding capabilities to combat transnational cyber-enabled crime. This is pretty damn interesting. I saw this, and I was like, holy shit, and someone posted on it. I'm like, no, that's not true. Went and validated it. I'm like, holy shit, it is. This is kind of cool. Listen to this. Cyber warfare in the multi-domain battlefield, or unrestricted warfare. Something fundamentally changed in American cyber warfare. President Trump has authorized a new program allowing vetted U.S. companies to conduct offensive cyber operations against foreign transnational criminal networks under direct federal control, not merely monitoring threats, penetrating networks, collecting intelligence while remaining undetected, manipulating, disrupting, degrading, even destroying hostile systems and infrastructure. Every operation requires federal review, written authorization, and operational oversight. DOJ and DHS will run the program with coordination across state, treasury, and Department of War and the intelligence community. Part of the operational framework remains classified. The significance cannot be overstated. The United States is building a federally directed cyber force that combines government intelligence and legal authorities with the speed, talent, and technology capacity of America's private sector. This effectively expands the operational battle space while giving Washington capabilities that can be activated, scaled, and deployed far faster than traditional government cyber units alone. This is more than cybersecurity. It is a formal mobilization of American private sector cyber power as an instrument of national power. The question is no longer, will America go on the offense? The question is, who is already in the crosshairs? Hint, ni hao, motherfuckers. I wrote that. So, why is this important? Remember how I was talking how Trump was anti-crypto? He was completely against crypto for the longest time. Then around 2021, he changed his mind. It wasn't because of, rug pull coins or Bitcoin's just gracious superiority. It was because he learned of a problem that he knew that our military was going to face in the coming years. And 2021 is when that problem began to surface. That problem was the advancement of artificial intelligence. And that as artificial intelligence begins to advance, becomes more commercialized and mainstream, other various different foreign adversaries are going to advance their technological capabilities within artificial intelligence, including cybersecurity. Now, Trump understood this. He began to realize that in the United States of America, one of the things that makes us incredibly powerful as a nation is the ability of capitalism to bring about mass innovation. That's kind of the inverse of what happens in a communist country. In socialism, what you have is you have the state that runs production. And so the state goes out there and can ramp up anything that they need within their infrastructure. This is why China runs on a quasi-capitalistic socialist infrastructure. They utilize capitalism to actually bring about the innovative nature, but they have the control mechanisms of socialism that stay in its place. In the United States of America, we don't have that. But if you're looking right here, what's actually happening? See, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, has three base core fundamentals. And I've repeated this ad infinitum, I know. Energy, compute, and data. AI has three base core fundamentals: energy, compute, and data. When you start to realize that blockchain technologies are going to be integrated within the global infrastructure, within the tokenization framework that's coming for the economic systems in the United States and the inter-exchange trade systems, that if you give those people that capability to do that, that they will build the systems of decentralized networks themselves. Now, one of the interesting parts about that is that now you have private companies and private individuals going out there building out the infrastructure for decentralized networks on various different blockchains in the United States. That's why Donald Trump said that the United States will become the crypto and blockchain mining capital of the world, because that brings in a massive amount of GPU power that actually processes that. Yesterday, we talked about how Anthropic just sealed like a $2 billion 10-year deal with a company that is one of the leading Bitcoin mining companies in the United States for data and GPU services. Get the hint? That Trump is allowing the free markets to build a national security critical infrastructure for artificial intelligence and cyber warfare that is being built by the national economy, by capitalism, because we could ramp it up much faster and more efficiently than China ever could. It's absolutely genius. And then what does he do? He opens up these various different programs through DHS, the DOW, the various intelligence agencies that can operate within that framework of these ancillary networks, and then utilize those resources and even their capabilities. Cyber teams that are privately funded could use those capabilities at the direction of the U.S. national security to launch massive cyber scale events. China does not have that capability. That's a direct threat to China. Russia, Iran, yeah, not even in the same boat. So that's freaking huge. I love this. President Trump says the U.S. naval blockade is in full effect in the Strait of Hormuz and is a wall of steel. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the blockade can be maintained indefinitely. We will rotate ships in and out as we have, and we will continue to do that. John Hunt tells them that as a result of the blockade, President Trump says the U.S. now has a total control over the Strait of Hormuz, and there's nothing Iran can do about it. I got a lot to say about this. Now, the first thing I'm going to say about this is what you have to start viewing, and I think we touched on it the other day, is the other day we talked about what if, my thought and theory. This is not obviously, this is my thought and theory. The civilian component government, not the other various factions in Iran, but the civilian component government, Al-Awlaki, all of these guys. These are guys that I think Trump handpicked and that they are alive today because of Trump, as well as I believe that they are part of that backdoor network that have communicated with Trump for a long time, even back when Soleimani was killed. And I think that these guys, they want Iran to be successful. They understand that this is a process that you have to go through. One of the things you have to do is you have to remove the threat of the Strait of Hormuz. But Strait of Hormuz also affects not the United States, but it affects Europe and it affects China in the context of energy and supply chain. And so this is a multifaceted approach. And I believe that the stopping the war, starting the war, stopping the war, starting the war, stopping the war, starting the war is actually Donald Trump's methodology for 5D chess. Let me explain. Right now, China had a 3-leg dependent for energy. The United States controls one of those legs. That was Venezuela. Now the United States controls the second leg. That's the Strait of Hormuz. Russia is the third leg, and we're kind of in cahoots with Russia anyway. So China has their 3-legged energy triangle already completely dismantled. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical straits on the planet for energy and supply chain. The other one that is most important to China is the Strait of Malacca. If the Strait of Malacca was shut down in a time of war, China would have less than 100 days of survival before the war of attrition actually took its toll on them, and they would be forced to surrender. The Straits of Malacca is much smaller than the Strait of Hormuz. So therefore, Donald Trump showing that he can do a complete shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz and control all traffic in and out of the Strait of Hormuz is a dry test run showing China the strength of the United States military blockade on the Strait of Hormuz that could be easily implemented around Taiwan as well as in the Strait of Malacca. That's one part. Number two is that we could produce the attrition necessary to starve China out of direct conflict and warfare. That comes about through a multifaceted approach. The defense cooperation agreements and the defense pact agreements that Donald Trump has formed with various GCC nations, the Gulf Coast countries. This is Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar. This is Kuwait, Bahrain. This is other nations like Turkey and so forth. Trump has developed various different military allegiances with these countries. If you go back to 2021, 2020, the BRICS nation was actually collaborating with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE for them to drop the dollar completely and switch to the Chinese yuan as the trading currency of global oil. What they did is instead of dropping the dollar, they still allowed the clearance of the transactions in the dollar, but allowed the acceptance of Chinese yuan. Now that hasn't changed and that is still in place, but that's okay because of Saudi Arabia and these other countries' military defense agreements and pacts that were formed with the United States Department of Defense, Department of War, and the amount of military technology that we're giving them. If a war did break out, kinetic warfare broke out with China tomorrow, Donald Trump can utilize proxy sanctions directly against China through the various OPEC nations. He can shut down the Venezuelan oil that's coming through the southern United States right now to China. He can shut down the Panama Canal, which is massive for supply chain. He can go out there, shut down the Strait of Malacca, shut down the Strait of Hormuz, do an embargo directly or do a blockade directly around Taiwan, shutting China off from all different types of supply chain, not just critical energy, but also 60% of Chinese imported oil comes from Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf nation states. And because of the defense cooperation agreements and pacts, those get shut down through that proxy engagement. In other words, that's game, set, match. China can't even compete at this level, what Donald Trump has done. He's basically created a situation to where if kinetic warfare breaks out, it's over within 100 days because that's all China has within their strategic petroleum reserve to sustain their civilian economic model as well as their military, of which, by the way, they're a socialist country, and that civilian economic model would be immediately transferred into military assets. So they wouldn't be able to sustain themselves for any bit of time. China knows this. This is why you have the interference and influence in the 2020 election. This is why they tried to do the same thing in 2024 and why they're going to try to do it in the midterms and why they're going to try to do it in 2028. And energy is the key to everything. And a stunning blow to the experts, the United States will set a record for natural gas production in 2026. 122.5 billion cubic feet per day. That's massive. We talked about the Strait of Hormuz and Iran. And Iran and Oman claim control. And it's really Iran that has claimed control for the longest time. And if you want to look at who really controlled the Strait of Hormuz, it was the London bankers. It was the London insurance companies. because they are the ones that basically create the monetization of the Straits of Hormuz with the various different insurance premiums of going through, and how the Ayatollah reacted to whatever country that day would increase or decrease those insurance premiums, which then would raise the gas per barrel of oil. Now, when we go into the Strait of Hormuz, I think what you're about to see is a consortium of Gulf nations that are going to come about, and Donald Trump is basically going to formalize an agreement with Iran, stating that, hey, look, we can't trust you with the Strait of Hormuz anymore, that what you need to do is bring about a board that is going to oversee the Strait of Hormuz to where not one single nation controls it militarily, but all of you nations control it militarily. And I think that Iran is actually going to take this deal because it's going to be pressured by the global community. And what you'll see is Saudi Arabia, Qatar, yet all of these countries coming into this consortium of the ownership of the Strait of Hormuz. I've explained that a few different times. Where are we at? Okay, so tonight we have the OG show, Overwatching the Guardian show. That is right after this show. That is on this channel, so you don't have to go anywhere. It's not listed yet, but it'll be up there soon. I'm getting into... there's some more news, but it's not like it's all transitional. But okay. We're going to continue with the economic aspect of things because I think that this is really important. We are entering into the golden age, and the golden age is upon us, and we have to understand that and see that with what the frameworks that Donald Trump has put into place internationally and domestically. Now, the United States wholesale inflation, this is what we're talking about, stays completely flat, shattering the experts' expectations over the last 6 months. This is huge. We talked about this the other day with Scott Bessent. And with him saying basically that, look, the numbers that are coming in are going to be phenomenal. And the work and the progress that we're doing is starting to show fruit. And if you pay attention, you're going to see the economic boom that's going to come from this. Listen to this.
Number, final demand month over month, expected up 0.2, comes in lower. Only goose egg, 0. That would be the highest rate of inflation because last month was negative since it was up 0.6 in May. So better than expected there. And as I said, -0.3 last month now becomes -0.1. Let's strip out food and energy. Comes out up 0.2, 1/10 lighter than expectation. Strip out food, energy, and trade. This one's a little warmer. We were expecting up 0.3. It comes up 0.4. That would be the highest since it was up 0.8 in May. Now let's find number.
Okay. In other words, we're getting really good economic numbers. And this is really critical to understand that what Scott Bessent was saying the other day is that we're moving into an economic powerhouse. Everything that I just talked about, the $20 trillion that are flowing into the United States of America, the building out of new infrastructure, the amount of jobs that are going to be created, the increase in salary positions, the advancements of technology, innovation from those technologies, all of this, and then the tokenization and implementation of tokenization within our country. That alone is going to create $100 trillion new market dynamic. We're not even talking about the robotics that is coming out and everything else that top of the lines this. So right now you're looking at, I think, $120 trillion gross domestic product, GDP of the United States of America. That is going to 5x over the course of the next 20 years. That's massive, people. If you can understand the significance of that, you would be investing and buying everything in the market right now. If you think of black swan events coming, it's always possible, but it's not going to do anything for you. You can buy today and be maybe, if a black swan event happened tomorrow and you bought, you might be up more, 15% more. That's it. You're only going to get about 15 to 20% decline in the market if you have a black swan event, which is going to be very difficult. Maybe even an 8 to 10%. The black swan event isn't about how far the market goes down, how far sold the market goes. It's about the social construct, the social hype of how the mainstream media narrative frames it. It can go down 3% and be like, the market's crashing. Oh my God, this is the black swan event. And people will sell. That is how that happens. But we have a new mechanism that operates within that information domain. Alternative media. The mainstream media is very much not listened to anymore. At least their advice is not taken anymore. And nobody really takes what they give out there as fact. They go out there and they re-verify it 1,000 times over. So the idea of creating this social constructed black swan event, highly unlikely. Now, people are saying, like, what if Japan drops all U.S. bonds? The Federal Reserve is just going to buy them up. What if China does? China owns less than Japan. Federal Reserve will just buy them up. I mean, we have a pretty stabilized economy. The problem with it, it's been crony capitalism for too long and it's been controlled and manipulated. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get it back to the point where they can release it and allow it to just grow naturally through massive innovation. And that's where the Trump administration is trying to take us to. All right, guys, I'm going into the OG show here in a little bit. So I hope to see you there. Don't forget tomorrow night live Q&A. Oh, man. I'm trying to get things set up here. Nothing stopped. Of course. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, cool. It finally did what I was trying to get it to do. I want to go ahead and just read this one. If you guys want to exit, you can go. The last song is coming up here after this, but I'm going to go ahead and read this one, and then we're going to play the song, and we'll be out until for another half an hour when the OG show starts, okay? So give me 1 second here. All right, parents, we'll talk for a second. Democratic Socialists are winning the primaries and gaining political influence heading into the 2026 midterms, and their ideas in favor of higher taxes, welfare programs, and bigger government are not only threatening our way of life, but they could destroy your children's future. Your kids are bound to hear more about socialism as we approach the midterms, but depending on the sources, like their public school teachers, they could be hearing that socialism is better than capitalism and that socialism is the answer to all our problems. Parents, trust me on this. You want to be in control of this conversation so your kids don't risk being brainwashed into believing their lies. That's why I want to tell you about the Kids Guide to Fighting Socialism. Designed specifically for kids, this important guide explains the differences between capitalism and socialism's big brother, communism, in a way kids understand. It explains crucial concepts such as free markets, individual freedom, and government overreach. The Kids Guide to Fighting Socialism also helps kids understand why socialism and communism have never worked by taking your kids through different historical examples from the Plymouth colony's failed attempt at socialism, Cuba's disastrous situation, and across the globe to the Soviet Union and communist China to show them how socialistic practices failed miserably. And remember, with the midterms coming up, this is especially important for kids to learn right now. That's why the Kids Guide is giving you the Kids Guide to Fighting Socialism for free today. It's part of the free gift bundle that also includes the Kids Guide to Free and Fair Elections. The Kids Guides are free and yours to keep. You just need to pay the $2 for shipping and processing with this special offer. To learn more and to order your free copy of the Kids Guide for Fighting Socialism and your free bonus guide, just visit PreventSocialism.com. That's PreventSocialism.com. All right. And if you stuck around with me for that, the OG show tonight, we're going to be talking about the latest tranche of UAP documents from the Department of War, as well as various different interviews Bob Bigelow and other people have been talking about, David Grush's most recent interview, and more about the context of origins and why near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences are directly associated with all of this. So it's a part 2 of a show that we did a few weeks ago during one of the other tranches of the release of the DAW. So it's going to be a good show, good discussion with myself and Alpha Warrior on the Overwatch and the Guardian show coming up after this. So pay attention to your Rumble feed, your YouTube feed, and Facebook, so forth. You'll see this come up here in just a little bit. So much love, respect. God bless, guys. Take care. Have a great night. And we'll see you guys here in a little while in the OG show. Everybody else, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was writing the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns in silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Through the smoke, a voice still calls. We the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil under. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a last prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time, there was a time. Now is the time. Do it.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's
It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!